Um, okay, shall we get going or wait for a few more minutes? Some people will come, I think, as they come.
I think it's
Let's
okay.
start. Yeah, let's start.
Okay, great. So it's my pleasure to welcome Unmute's dance company and the members with us today. Many of you know them, but for the sake of perhaps formality, just to say they are South Africa inclusive company of artists with mixed abilities who use physical theatre, contemporary dance, and sign language to create dance, but also awareness around inclusion, integration of people with disabilities into mainstream society. And they often engage with wider social issues in their work also. They came into existence in 2013 when they worked on a young blood arts and culture development funded project where they created the work Unmute, from which they took their company name. And they work with people with or without disabilities and have created more than 10 productions, a lot more than 10 productions actually, and done lots of collaborative work in South Africa and internationally. And they're deeply committed to training new performers, which has its own challenges around disability, and also doing outreach projects in communities to help people in general overcome stigma and fear to do with various kinds of disability. They've performed in many festivals and have themselves initiated the Arts Ability Festival in Cape Town from 2014, which actually survived through COVID, which is an amazing thing. And we're very grateful for them. So I'm going to hand over to the co-directors, Nadine, mcKenzie, and Andile Vellem, to talk a little bit about their work and have a conversation with us about things that they're engaging in present. So thank you very much, both of you, for being with us today.
Thank you for having us.
So I know that when we were preparing, we said we would do this as a Q&A, just because it helps to kind of provoke conversation and discussion. So for me, also just a welcome to Nadine and Andile. They're like family. I've worked with them before and just really happy to that they've given up this time. It's a really hectic time in South Africa because there's lots of funding proposals due. So it's kind of, so thank you for the time as well. So I wanted to start because I do know your stories, but I find them to be so profound, to kind of maybe start on a more personal level and to ask both Nadine and Andile to talk a little bit about how you got into contemporary dance. What was the pathway to getting into contemporary dance, and how did that kind of feel like it was a space for you to think about notions of identity and belonging, which is really key in your work as well. So I don't know who wants to start, Nadine or Andile.
Wow. It feels like such a long time ago. It's an interesting. It's been an interesting process for me because I discovered dance, I was introduced to dance at a very young age. I was 11. And at the time, I did not see it as something that could be practiced by persons with disabilities or someone in a wheelchair. Um, and I started with ballroom and Latin dancing. I was introduced to it at school when I was 11. And I remember when I was asked if I would like to join dance classes after school, I was like, what? And I actually did, have this conversation with the teacher that invited me but how? And as much as I thought it was interesting and I found it was very curious, but I was not that interested. And I think also mainly because I didn't think people with disabilities or in wheelchairs could dance, but also just thinking, what would that look like and what would people think? But I ended up doing it anyway, but not for that long. It wasn't my thing. But I was in grade 12 when Remix Dance Company came and did a performance. Andile was in that performance as well. I think he just started at Remix, I think. A performance at my school, at our assembly. I was in grade 12. And I sat with the memory of that performance for quite some time because it was something I've never seen before, not in that way. And for me, at some point during the performance, there was only one person on stage in a wheelchair, Malcolm Black. Um, Somewhere during that performance, I stopped seeing a wheelchair and I just saw people on stage all dancing together. There was no disability. There was nothing. It was just artists. And I think that was something for me that stood out the most. And I think that's what got me more curious and interested in this way of working. Um, they later came back to the school and did some classes and workshops. And I started attending, and then I think, yeah, Nicola Fisser, she invited me to their open classes. I went a couple of times, and then I was in school. When you're younger, you are interested in something for a short period of time, and then you lose interest and you move on to something else. And she was quite persistent, and she's like, "You're very good at dancing. I need you to come to open classes every week." And I started going, and I matriculated, and I started my studies. I was going to study business management. I was very interested in business. And there was this thing I couldn't let go of dancing. And so I just made this very impulsive decision, and my parents were very mad at me. Um, I just decided I wanted to dance. I don't care if I can always go back to studies, but I just felt like this is something that I wanted to do so badly. And then I joined Remix as part of the training program at the time, and I was there for a while. And I think 2 years later or something, I joined the full-time company. Yeah, and I guess that's where the journey for me started really. Um, and Andile and I immediately started working together. And I think it was also during that time when I went to Remix, and I think it was the first time also that we really got to explore, okay, so how do we do this? How do we work, together? How do we use the chair and incorporate the chair within the work that we do? And how do we not see the chair as, something extra in space? And it's part of our dance. And that's where I think our journey as artists and collaborators also started. Um, yeah, and we worked together for quite a long time. But Remix closed down, I think it was in 2012, Andile. Yeah. Um, and a lot was going on at the time, and we were struggling to find work as artists. And I think the realization really, it sunk in that there's not many platforms or organizations that work inclusively or that are even open to the idea of working inclusively at the time. And there were not many opportunities, and people would either read your CV or they would hear names and would be, yes, we would love to work with them. But the moment you arrive and they realize you have a disability, it's like, oh, what do we do now? You know? And so it was really difficult to find work. And I guess that's when we started playing around and unmute the production was created. And I guess, yeah, everything just happened from there on. Yeah.
And Andile.
Hello. So I remember when I was in school in Durban, I was studying and I was finishing grade 12, and then one teacher, the dance teacher, chose me to go to a workshop. I met them in the university in Johannesburg.
Never knew anything about dance. That's when he met Adam. 2000? Yeah? Did a workshop with Adam. Learned a lot. Very interesting work. Adam was very patient. That's where I discovered and learned more about movement. After the workshop, the name? Kano.
Yeah, Twana Kano.
We later met Malcolm and Nikki. Oh, they were also part of the workshop. A lot of other deaf people as well, persons with disabilities, able-bodied people. It was an amazing workshop with Adam. Learned a lot. And lots of communication with Adam as well. Yeah, we had a lot of communication, but even though Adam didn't, I think, know sign language, he tried. After the workshop, a few weeks, went back to school, to Durban, and continued teaching. For kids with disabilities, visually impaired. Try to explore what you learned from the workshop with the learners. Later saw an email from Nikki and Malcolm. They invited him to join Remix. And he started working with Remix from 2005. That's when he left the school and came to Cape Town to join Remix. That's when we met. Yeah. We played a lot and explored a lot. Nikki and Malcolm as well. So we all learned sign language as well and how to communicate. That's when this other organization, the company with that's when Remix invited this other organization called SLED to come in and teach the company sign language. And that's how the performers in the company or the rest of the company learned sign language. That's when we started playing using sign language within the work as well. How to use poems and incorporate signing within the work. Yeah, it was quite sad when Remix closed down. And that's when we started the project, and we got some funding from Youngblood to do the Unmute production. It was myself, Nadine, Putseng, and Temba. Yeah. Wasn't easy. It was very difficult. Also getting funding. Yes, Youngblood. Yeah, yeah. Dance umbrellas. So after we got funding, yeah, the first time around from Roger Youngblood to start a production, we later got invited to Dance Umbrella at the time, and we did a residency there, and we continued the work, the production Unmute, as part of Dance Umbrella. We came back. Grahamstown. We also took the work to Grahamstown. Yeah. Yeah. Very difficult. Yeah. We helped each other a lot within the work, and also trying, yeah, to make it grow, and also within the work. We got a few awards. Yeah. Yeah, we later got a bit of more funding. I think that's when we started the first training program after starting Unmute. Yeah. Contact improvisation. Yeah.
Wow.
Hmm? 12 years, yes. This year it's 13 years. Cannot believe that. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And still performing.
But
Need a younger person, another Andile. Tired of performing.
No, no to both of you. You have to keep going. Thank you for the narrative, and the kind of it's really hard surviving, particularly. So as also based in South Africa, I know that the funding is really harsh. It's the geopolitics is making it more and more difficult to find funding. So survival for 13, 14, 15 years is quite extraordinary. I wanted to also, the thing that really, for me, exemplifies the work of Unmute is not just the artistic excellence of the work that you do, which is, the awards and all the accolades for that, but also the deeply humanizing work that you do in your training programs and in the work and in the narratives and the stories that you tell and the way that you integrate non-disabled and disabled dancers and the kind of narratives that are being told. And I know it kind of stems from Unmute, which was really a benchmark for that kind of storytelling. But maybe just a little bit about your own growing kind of philosophy around making art. The idea, and I asked the personal question because the personal always becomes the political, and that kind of growing sense of how you started with your own trials and tribulations and how that became this deeply humanizing and inclusive way in which Unmute does, because also you've got a huge amount of community engagement work, which also really defines the company. I mean, I also, when you do your festival, you don't just stay in theaters, you go into community spaces. And so that for me is also something that's really beautiful. So maybe, the question in all of this is really to talk about that kind of growing philosophy around your work, and are you able, I mean, because sometimes you just do it, you just as an artist, you're in there and you're doing it and you're surviving the dance moment, but I'm wondering if you've really thought about this ongoing, deeply humanizing philosophy that Unmute carries as a dance company.
You want to go first?
Can I slightly interrupt you, Andile? I'm sorry to interrupt you. We're not hearing the translation. I'm wondering if the person who's helping you translate could come and sit behind, just for those who don't speak South African sign, if it's possible just to come and we're not hearing you. So if you could just come and help, thank you.
Thing is, I need to also face him too.
I know it's not useful, all of this, but we're not catching your voice. So
long and then.
So what Unmute does is travel through the provinces and do workshops and going through each province, each community and different schools, just kind of still engaging the community with work and not only focusing on the smaller spaces. So even going to the different provinces, doing like 2-3 week residencies, and then getting back to do performances after that residency and teaching workshops that are integrated, mostly focused on the sign language and just integrated work.
thank you. So I'm wanting to ask the sign maybe to kind of throw on, and I will open this out, but this I don't know if am I still here? The sign language, because I think one of the things, Andile, you particularly, the growth of this extraordinary technique in a way, I mean, in a time in history where no one's really inventing techniques anymore and everyone's throwing techniques away, kind of as kind of impositions and as colonialized, and the idea that you have developed this extraordinary methodology of creating dance through sign language. I'm wondering if you're starting to codify it a little bit more. How is that technique growing as a kind of methodology of working for you and in your programs?
So now I'll focus on the base of sign language and alphabet. And then from alphabets, we continue building blocks to sign names. And then we change it over and get it into movement of those names. So we develop and explore from and then we make choreography from the explorations using sign language and putting in the movement. And we combine both the alphabets, movement, but taking it from the base We don't go into much depth. So we make the base easier and comfortable. And then how to sign first, and then how do we take it into the body. And we also look and see different bodies. And it doesn't matter whether it's able or disabled bodies. We look at how we can make it balance all, seeing it clearly with the hands more than it is. And we take it from, so we start with just the words and then make sentences, and we see how we can embody them into the movement. Then we give them more time to explore and to correct and create their own choreography. So you give them time to develop. And we see how we can put it together and show and make it a performance. Then we see how, if Unmute likes this one, we use it as a group performance. And we establish it for our Arts Ability Festival. Why? Sign language is still important. A lot of young people and the youth, they're not aware of how sign language, original language, we get excited. And yeah, so now they learn sign language. And because they're young, they learn quite quicker. And we perform with them. And we put it together for Arts Ability Festival, and they show their performances.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It's a incredibly beautiful methodology of working, and I know that it's growing and it's becoming deeply sophisticated and beautiful. And one of the things that I know about Unmute, and maybe it's something you could reflect upon, is that there's not a generic way of working. You always see who's in the room, and then there's a tailor making of the work to who's in the room. And I'm wondering, you know, I know that we've spoken to people like Jörg, who's here, and other artists who are trying to find ways of finding inclusive ways of creating technical ways of training and teaching dance is all deeply inspiring. And the idea of how one works with who's in the room rather than this kind of, we're all going to do this technique together. And I wondered if, I mean, I feel like the sign technique really falls into that. But I am always humbled by the idea of working with who's in the room. And I'm wondering if you want to do, you and Nadine perhaps want to reflect on that as well.
We actually, it's interesting, Lliane, because we're experiencing this right now because we have a new group of trainees, a group of 9, and 4 of them are able bodies and dancers, and 4 of them have disabilities. There's one dancer that's deaf, and it's also been quite interesting with him because with Andile, he has a very small percentage of hearing still. So we are very used to communicating and working with Andile, and also because he can still pick up a bit of sound and vibrations in the floor too. However, with this a new trainee, it's very different because he is completely deaf. And so very often, especially now in classes, we have to really think of ways of how to bring the message across and teach certain things to him, whereas everyone is very, used to working with Andile. And also just on a communication level as well, where we had some questions over the past weeks of, can there be assistance in the room at times, especially when Andile is teaching. So we've kind of also trying to figure out, do we have someone in space that's demonstrating all the time when Andile is teaching, or sometimes do we say no, and they need to figure it out, they need to learn, how Andile communicates, and get used to having him only in the space and not rely on having an extra person in space. So it's little things like these, that it's who is in the room and how do we adapt in space constantly. And it's not sort of a once-off thing. It's daily, where you have to find different ways of how do we adapt exercises, how are we communicating, and it might work today and it might not work tomorrow. Yeah, and it's quite interesting. And we also have two wheelchair dancers, and it's also, adapting exercises for both of them, and for certain things might work for one of them and some might not. So it's really always finding, and you have to wear your thinking hat 24/7, because you can never be, relaxed or too complacent going into space. It's always, you have to think on your feet, and just, yeah, I
Yeah.
guess always improvise.
And I suppose it's also part of the humanizing of the work
Yeah,
that you do, is that people are not relegated to just, get on with it, find a way, the idea of deeply respecting the access needs of those in the room. And yeah, I mean, the issue of translation is really interesting, even, on a platform like this, because so much is lost in translation in a way, right? Um, yeah, I think maybe maybe two last things I wanted to ask, and then, we can open it up for questions. But I kind of wanted to ask both of you, because you've been doing this work for a very long time, that what do you think were your highlights of the work that you've done thus far? Because I've got my favorites, and I did see the original Unmute production, and of course when Themba Mbuli won the Standard Bank Young Artist, the work that he made with Unmute it kind of changed my life, watching that work. But maybe what were the highlights of the work that you've made? I know also for me, Nadine, the film that you made during COVID called Access Denied. And I know it's a screen dance work, but I use it in my, it's sort of like says everything one needs to say about anything really in the world. But I'm wondering for you and Andile, what are your highlights of the work that you've made, whether it's a performance or a particular project? So that's, because I always like that idea of the archive and remembering, So yeah.
For me, that's a very difficult question. There's so many projects and performances that, yeah, it's really close to my heart, and I'm very fond of very different reasons. But I would say Unmute would be one of them, because it really was the work that sort of got the ball rolling for us. And I think also because we were just performers at the time, we knew nothing about what it even is to start an organization. We were just very ambitious performers that we had these dreams and ambitions, and we wanted to see integrated work in South Africa on a broader scale, and not as this, taboo or something everyone feared. And I guess, yeah, we just, through willpower and stubbornness, we just kept pushing and pushing and never taking no for an answer. And I think, yeah, that was one. And of course, the work we did with Flatfoot as well. Um, what else did we do? And we've done so many works that another piece, but I don't know if it counts as it was not part of our time here at Unmute. We were still at Remix, but it's also one production that really stood out for me that I often also still think about, and we also speak about. It's a work we did years ago when we were still with Remix with Dave Toole, because we both admired him so much, and often, when you look for people in this field of work, Dave was always one of those artists that you would go look up. Yeah, we did a production together, and that was also one of the works, and we learned such a great deal from him as well. And of course, the works we did with Themba as well. We never really thought of working with props in the way that he did through all his works with the company, and the Standard Bank work as well sold. really forced us to come out of our comfort zones, and not just think of looking beautiful on stage, and but really working from a place of what am I saying on stage, and how do we connect with one another in the work, and how do you bring whatever prop is on stage, bring it to life. And we still practice that even now. Whenever we work with any kind of prop, it's always that thing of, if you're going to put it on stage, it has to have life. It can't just be on stage and then you work with it for a few minutes and then it's just there. So yeah, Themba's work has really also taught us how to work with props on stage. And of course, as a disabled performer, at the time I used to hate it so much because it was trying to figure out, okay, I'm already trying to figure out how am I moving with the chair and how am I doing this. And then you're asking me to carry this massive sculpture that's my height and my size and heavier than me and dance at the same time. But those were the kind of works that really forced me personally to think and to find new ways of moving and I guess adapting also. And yeah.
Thank you. Beautiful. It's also beautiful to take a moment to remember Themba as well, So
Yeah.
thank you for that. And Andile?
I think one of my highlights was the collaboration, as Nadine said. Themba's work. And using props every time and learning how to use the wheel and sculptures and connecting to the work. And it was a lot of exploration. And teaching everyone sign language at the same time and adding in props, signing, and helping everyone while moving around. But for me, that was very good. Why using the props, giving them life. All the props are alive and not dead. Plus, with the body being on stage. So you must build a connection with the prop and the body. How? Thinking of taking care of the props. And that was amazing.
What was your favorite work?
Themba's works were one of my highlights. And the first one to and also to learn integration work and working with ADDN. It was a lot of work. So I enjoyed working with ADDN quite a lot. And so many memories are still there from ADDN.
Beautiful. And so maybe my last question, so thank you, because I think we get so busy in the making all the time and the teaching and the community engagement that sometimes we forget to stop and just remember the extraordinary archive of the work, and so that's my questions are really archival because I think it's really important. And I know that there's some very exciting projects coming up for Unmute as well. You guys have also been traveling the world, really, and quite a lot. And I kind of, also from both of you, what are the things that we're going to look forward to? I also wanted to say that the festival that you run, the Arts Ability Festival, which is the first Integrated Arts Festival is a kind of spearheaded, and one or two smaller festivals have picked up in South Africa as a result. And I know there's this desire to connect them all, but it's an extraordinary space. And I remember during COVID, there was a film every night. I remembered for 1 month watching a little film every night. It was the most beautiful thing. But also, so yeah, just also, so again, a kind of future archive question. What's on the cards for you guys for 26, 27?
Lots of performance work as well, and our possible collaboration again later this year. We're looking forward to that. But I think for me, the most exciting thing is the training program that just started a few weeks ago. Just having a new group of young people in space. There's so much energy and life in the space, and it's so exciting. So that's really something that I'm very excited about for the year ahead. And also the outreach work. I think as much as we love performing, and me too, I think it's always my highlight or my favorite part of the work is the outreach work. It's traveling to schools and working with young people and really being out there in the communities and not just stuck in our studio. So I'm really looking forward to that as well. We have some school tours coming up later in the year as part of our schools outreach performances, a few residencies as well. And then it's the training. Am I leaving anything out? And the training program. The training program is my highlight, really. We just, yeah, every day they do something different or something new, and we all go, oh, they're so cute. Yeah.
But it's also, I mean, your answer also speaks to your heart, because it's also, it's what sits at the heart of Unmute is always the idea, the politics of also revisioning how
Yeah.
disability is imagined, and the idea of belonging, and you know, the kind of rethinking notions of identity, and in a country like South Africa is so significant and so important. I don't know if Andile wants to add anything, and then I'm going to open it up to questions.
For me, what I look forward to is focusing more on the trainees that are Unmute and collaborating and integrating and mixing with other special needs schools and learning from each other. With the special needs school, and some have disabled and others have both. So they have learning disabilities, intellectual disabilities, and also problems with SID, which is severe intellectual disability. So they learn slow, but the trainees work together with those schools. So the exchange between the two. And we see that Unmute is growing and moving forward, even with the schools and touring, and also the community work being integrated into Unmute and learning with each other in an integrated space. And also working with the school for the deaf and trying to find schools that are deaf, but there are problems with communication. Some of the school principals they don't have an interest in seeing a deaf performer who can do and communicate with workshops. And the deaf can do performances, but the principals have problems and funding and transport, that communication. And we want to educate, and we as Unmute want to push forward until we want to move forward and continue moving with the schools and just leave them with the wow and see the importance of working with them and bring the youth for Unmute. So that's what we look forward to in the future. We cannot change and continue to go forward as Andile.
No, I mean, it's also, when I hear both of you speak, it's just, as I say, it's a reminder to me of the deeply humanizing work that you do, that it's, and also it's understanding that dance becomes a methodology for social change, at some very, very deep level. So thank you. Thank you so much. There's always 1,000 questions to ask, but I know that perhaps maybe those of us in the room might have some questions for Andile and Nadine. It's really nice to have Adam and to meet you properly. Your legacy on the African continent is huge. So it's really nice to have you here and to say that we honor you for that as well. And I don't know if there are any questions from anyone in the room. Maybe just there's so few of us, and I know that people will be listening later. But if anyone wants to ask a question, just to kind of unmute and unmic and maybe just to speak, I don't know if Nadine. Oh, Adam's got a question, maybe.
Well, firstly, thank you for inviting me, and it's a real pleasure to be here. There are faces I know and faces I don't know. Hello, Jörg. Many years since we crossed, so it's lovely to see you. Great to hear your stories, and I happen across Unmute every couple of years at a festival somewhere. So the last time was last year in South Korea, and always it's just this extraordinary. Well, it's just a delight to see how the performative work of the company continues to mature, and how you as artists are growing. It's really inspiring to see that. It's great to hear about the emphasis that you're placing on educational work. I think I think that in a way that's the groundwork for everything, because companies will come and go, but the education work is the future proofing of this work. I understand the difficulties that you have there. I wonder, are you doing what we used to call, I think we probably still do, inset, which is training for teachers? So not just the work with the youngsters in the schools, but setting up programs where you can work with the teachers who are working in the schools. Yeah. So I was just curious if you're.
We started something 2 years, I think it was 2 years ago, where we started working with teachers in schools. There was a period, I think it was last year, where some of those teachers also came to us weekly. But we started a program last year that we call a pre-training program. So we have schools, we've got about 6 schools at the moment that come to us weekly, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And some of their facilitators also join. So we work quite closely together, teaching the learners, but the facilitators are also present in the room. So at times when we are not there or they have to prepare for a performance, some of those facilitators sometimes step in and assist as well.
Great. I think, in the world of education, there's a slow creeping awareness that inclusivity is an essential part of education. And yet still within the mainstream of education, teachers remain unskilled and lack knowledge. So I just think that if you've already got a program where you're working with teachers, I think that may be such a valuable thing. And perhaps look to see if you can get some funding, some support to document that training, to produce something, a booklet, a video on the teacher training. Maybe you're already doing that, but I just think it might be. You are good. Okay. I just think it's yeah, good. Tell me about it.
We just started, so it's still in the early stages. Andile, who's assisting with interpreting, so she's doing the writing, and it's something that it's been on our hearts for a long time, and we could never really do it because we're a small team and we all wear 5,000 hats, and funding and all the other challenges that comes with it. But we started last year with just sitting down and really looking at how do we document all of this. It's one thing to do the work, but if we can't show it in any way, it's non-existent, especially when you're looking for funding for it as well. So we're in that process now where we spend a lot of time documenting and writing and recording, and at times it can be a little bit tedious, but it's that vision that we also have, that in a few years from now, we want something that we can share with the Department of Education as well, and say, this is what we've got, and this is what they can use at schools as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super. Great. That's great. Lovely to hear.
It would be lovely at some time, if you are available, just to pick your brain a little as well, Adam, with any advice on this journey. It's very new for us, so we have no idea what we're doing and what it's going to look like a year from now. So it would be lovely to, I guess, chat to you as well sometime.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm available.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. Jörg?
Hello, lovely seeing you all. It's just so nice to connect across all these distances again. You, of course, embody this working with sign language movement through your company. And, it's akin to working with text and movement as well, in terms of these layers of meaning that can be created. I wonder whether you have experiences in terms of how deaf community responds to working with ASL. I've been in other environments where there was pushback from the deaf community when stylizing movement beyond the everyday use of the language, which is, of course, something that happens in spoken language as well. That's where poetry comes in as well. And on the other hand, the exotization of sign language by hearing populations. Like, oh, it's so beautiful. It's a bit like that moment in The Fish Called Wanda, like, speak Italian to me. So people sort of getting like thrilled by it, even though it goes, have no understanding of it at all. So reception by the deaf community, and also reception by the hearing community, and how you counter or meet these perceptions in your work.
Thank you for the question. I think first, when I was born, and I was 5 years old, I changed and became deaf. So the problems, I had mumps. So my ears got blocked. And after 6 months, I was staying in hospital for 6 months and just laying. Then later on, I heard very little on my left side. And I could hear very little and hear small birds and tweeting sounds. And I was shocked when I got, but the right ear was completely deaf, and then the left is like very little, 2% of hearing on my left. Then later on, As I was with my family, my sister would make me touch the speaker with vibrations on the TV, and you could feel the vibrations through the hands. You'd feel the vibrations, and I could feel it through my whole body. And then I saw movement, and that's when I'd be able to translate it into movement. And later I started learning, and also when the speaker and performance must really be loud so that the vibrations are loud. And before the performances, during rehearsals or performing, I must first feel the music. And I'll connect with the music and then different rhythms through the vibrations. And how I see how hearing people perform and observe. So you're constantly aware. If the music is low, then I follow the people with my eyes and my movement is still maintained, and I see. So you can feel the connections and you're helping each other. And also, to work with the deaf and hearing. And learning from the bass and them listen to music. So now with our trainees, it's just they learning movement through that, sensing and feeling. So then we explore the different. And also I try to help with dance people, laying on the floor, put the music, the speaker, and make them feel the vibrations through the floor. And close the room in the studio, all the windows. And try, even with the hearing people, try to have them close their ears and just feel the music, and they'll learn how to teach vibrations. And also with hearing people, they help the deaf. So it's kind of a balance between. But it is a lot of work. And also some hearing people help how to count. So when you start with the class and you see of the trainees helping with the music, and if I like the music, they'll help with counting to the rest of the class that is not hearing.
Thank you, Andile. So you talked about your personal journey. Thank you for sharing that. And also the methodology of working across deaf participants and hearing participants. I just maybe rephrase my question. How does the deaf community respond to your work with with South African Sign Language? Is that overall positive? They love that you're doing this with sign language, or they're skeptical?
I think from what the experience that we've had so far, especially from the deaf community, it's been quite good. I think a lot of people find it quite interesting, especially using sign language and incorporating it within the dance as well. It's always so exciting. There was this one piece we did, Listen to My Hands. I think we brought it to Durban last year. When people start recognizing sign language within the piece and they see words, they get so excited. And it's been one of the ways to get, especially deaf people, quite curious about dance and movement. And then with hearing people, especially older people and audiences, there's that curiosity of wanting now to learn sign language and asking, how do you say this and how do you say that? With the youth, especially with schools, there's that thing, especially early on, where they would at first, joke about it and find it funny and laugh, and later become quite interested in wanting to learn. Okay, so this is A, this is B, and this is the alphabet. However, with the schools that we're working with, majority of the schools are either schools with learners with special needs and mainstream schools. But it's been very, very challenging for us to find schools with learners that are deaf to work with and facilitate dance classes with. For some reason, there's just not been that much of an interest. One of the schools that we've just started with, we've been trying to have a relationship with them for, I think, more than 5 years. It's been so difficult to get in there. And we just started, I think it was this week or today, when Putseng went, that we started working with them. And we're really hoping that something, longer grows out of this. It's just, there was just one school that we last year started working with, MK. And one of their learners, and there were not that many learners that were interested in dance, they saw it as an outreach. They would come to our studio. So for them, it was more of getting out of school and just being here. But if you can reach one learner, then that's good enough. And so there was this one student that's in our training program at the moment, and he was part of that school. And he was, I think, the only learner that was really curious about dancing and exploring. And we immediately noticed it, and we worked more with him. And it was beginning of this year when his dad contacted us and said he's really interested in being part of Unmute's training program. And we just said, yes, come. So he's the first deaf student that we have. And we're really hoping that, through this year's outreach work as well, that it will grow and we'll have more learners. Yeah. So there's been a bit of a mixture of, both interest and curiosity, and some people not being that interested in it. So it's a bit of a mix.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yvette.
Hi, that was a lovely question, Jörg, and thank you so much, Andile and Nadine. I just want to speak a little bit about that question because I've got someone working with me in graduate research. She's working with British and Chinese sign and dance and working to try and bring together hearing and sign communities or deaf communities, but not having a translator. Very much those questions they're asking, not having a translator in the room, and making both groups find ways of communicating that are equivalent, finding a communal language that they own, and having sign as a modality of communicating that is like a language as much as any languages. But she's using music and poetry as her modalities, which seem counterintuitive, but it's working really well because it's challenging everybody. People going, what? The deaf people going, how do you expect me to dance with music I can't hear? And she's saying, follow the bodies of the hearing. And she's saying to the hearing, show me the poetry in your body and express it. And they're going, we don't understand the poetry and we don't know how to do that. So everybody's kind of doesn't know how to do what they are being asked to do. And I think finding the equivalencies and not translating was for her a really important way of shifting those assumptions about translation, but also about deafness. Not exoticizing it, but also not something that's learning one way. And it's coming up with really interesting results, but they're also different for the Chinese and the British, because Chinese is a pictograph, it's a pictographic language. So they work in pictograms, they work in images, whereas English isn't. And English writing and speaking is not. So the way they use images is very different. So even the cultural framing of those exercises is very different. It's fascinating watching this research. I'm just learning, and I'm awe-inspired as I'm watching the experiments happening. It's not my work, it's Xiling's work, but it's beautiful work. So I think those questions you're asking are really lovely questions.
I'm wondering if there's any other questions, or I know we've already gone on quite a long time, and it's been really beautiful just also to meet with the community, our ADDN community again. And those who are not here but who will be listening online, a big hello from all of us. And just really nice to connect again. And maybe, yeah, Yvette, maybe you could just close off for us. And yeah, I mean, of course, always such a heartfelt thank you to Unmute and to Nadine and Andile for giving this time at the end of a very long day. So thank you as well. It's really lovely to connect with you. And I'm going to hand over to Yvette.
Thank you. Also, as kind of segue, if you like, between this and our next session. So some of the work that Unmute have also done is with the dancer Sifinati Mayokiso, I hope I've said his name right, who has engaged albinism, both in the work in the film Access Denied, but also in the performance Pending Flesh, very moving, very challenging. And of course, albinism has a very particular meaning in Africa, where you've got, a black person that has a white body. What does that mean for identity? What does that mean, in terms of belief and threat for the people? And it's not work that's been widely done. I learned about the work through Unmute. It's opened up a whole area of interest for me. So next ADDN session, which is on the 22nd of April, we'll have Hilda Machiso from Malawi. She is a theatre practitioner who works with young people, particularly young people with albinism. And she's the representative for persons with disability advocacy. So she's going to share a little bit about her work in Malawi with albinism and young people, and kind of creating advocacy for these young people through the arts. And of course, in Africa, theatre and performance and dance, the borders aren't as clear as they are maybe for us in the global north. So we're really looking forward to her in our next session. And again, thank you very much for coming today and sharing your work and your experiences. And we're looking forward to hearing more. And we're hoping in the future we'll hear some more from what Adam is doing in the present. So that's something else we will be looking forward to down the road. So thank you very much and have good evenings.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for having us, and thank you everyone for joining in.